My name is Garth DeAngelis. I am the senior producer on the project for XCOM 2 at Firaxis, and I worked on XCOM Enemy Unknown and Enemy Within.
My name is Mark Nada. I am a designer on XCOM 2, and it's really the first big game I've worked on.
The way that I think games go, and as you try to turn them into longer-term franchises, you learn a lot. You learn about the realities of things. We actually went for procedural maps on Enemy Unknown. They were very random. There were scattered elements to the maps. Things didn't make much sense. So the team sort of had to go through how to actually handcraft maps and make them be logical. They look coherent. They look beautiful. They play well. They have really good designs behind them. And the team mastered that, I think, on Enemy Unknown and Enemy Within. That enabled us then to return to what design originally wanted to do, which was procedural maps, and say, okay, we have sort of this foundation from Enemy Unknown. Let's now look at what we can do to bring procedural maps to life. So we truly have kind of the best of both worlds right now. The maps look handcrafted. I've already heard a lot of commentary from people that they can't even tell that they're procedural because they stitch and blend together in these beautiful, beautiful ways. And it was one of our pre-production top pillars. So we had a small strike team go and say, what does the pipeline need to become so we can ensure that the layout changes every single time you play? So it's always been a goal of designs, and with XCOM 2, we made sure that we would make it happen by putting in the work up front and getting the pipeline in place.
Like I said, it's very much a combination of this kind of handcrafted / procedural stuff. So when we have a map, we'll kind of place down the land of the map, and there'll be holes in it where we place the more handcrafted aspects. So some of them are larger than others, but we could place down like a big building that is like where the objective is, and that will be marked up with potential spots where the chest or the workstation could spawn, and then other parts of the map are marked up with spawn points. So there's all this markup, and then so you have these parcels, we call them, like the buildings that we place into this kind of quilt of the map. And then the map itself has these roadways, which we then put another layer of, cars on streets or
light poles, trash cans.
Advent checkpoints could pop down. Yeah. So you get this nice, so everything is coherent because, the maps will be marked up like this part of the map needs to be, small town, suburban building or park or something. So the map knows about stuff to thematically still work. But then you still end up with a very random experience because you could spawn somewhere else, the objective could be somewhere else. So every time you go in, the map looks very different, but still all works together really well.
Even in that sort of patchwork system that Mark described, there had to be further work to get some logic behind it to make sure that relative to your spawn points, where they could potentially be, you had to have the mission objective show up in the right place. It couldn't be either right in front of you or completely off the beaten path, or even orientation of these things with driveways. You remember that stuff?
Yeah, there's a lot of little details that'll definitely get lost on most players, but there's some a gas station has these drive-throughs, so it needs to connect to the street, so you have to be able to account for that. It's got to line up, and so the system is just rotating parcels and trying to get them to fit wherever it can and give you kind of newer ones, so you're always kind of seeing new stuff. But I think in the end it ended up working phenomenally, even better than I thought when I was working on it. So everything is procedural to a degree. They'll be, depending on what point you are in the game, the enemies that appear will be kind of in this range of what could appear, but the number and exactly what enemies is all kind of generated procedurally.
And where they show up.
And where they show up,
patrols.
And if they're patrolling or if they're guarding the objective. So that's all dynamically done when the map's generated. So I mean, there's a lot of hand-placed markups so that things like where objectives are make sense, but there's always more than one, and the orientation of where you're moving to or what building it's in changes as well. Multiplayer is going to be comparable to the first game, except obviously all new enemies. We did a lot of work to kind of refine the experience and maybe not make you fill as much with all the items and loadouts of your soldiers. We do want to still give you that ability to give your soldiers items. So what we did was you have the different soldier classes that is the guy you get. You don't choose a different rank or anything. but each branch of the soldier classes. Like you could have a hacker specialist or a medic specialist, and you could give them one item, and that will cost points as well. So it kind of makes for a quicker way to get into games and build your squad. And then tactically, we still use procedural maps, so those will all be different. And we obviously did some work to make sure that the spawn points and everything works right, and that it's a fun experience, and the size of maps is fun for multiplayer. But so it should be a new experience every time. And the new aliens obviously have crazy new abilities, which kind of work in multiplayer in really cool ways and aggravating the test ways sometimes. But
yeah, the team actually had self-organized and ran their own team tournaments, multiplayer tournaments, and it was really, really fun to just see and hear from everyone because they had a blast with it.
Yeah, it was great.
And that led to some great balancing information as well. But like Mark said, playing with those alien abilities, like hearing sort of the stuff that emerged from doing certain things with certain aliens, which we won't reveal right now. We'll let the community find that out. Was really, really cool to see.
It's weird. It kind of evolved through our own development. It kind of had a lot of different faces while we were making it. It used to be, individuals be concealed and all these different things, and we're like, this isn't quite fun. It's confusing.
It was the seed for it was very early though.
Yeah.
It was way early in pre-production before we even had anything implemented. When we knew that we wanted to take the lore of, or we were still exploring the lore potentially of XCOM Lost, but we knew we wanted to do something a little more guerrilla or resistance based. The concealment system was something that design said we want this, and we knew it would be smart to modify tactical up front. We liked a lot of stuff with tactical with the 2-turn system and just fighting the aliens with the different classes and those things we didn't want to touch, but we wanted something that would make it feel different up front, and concealment did a pretty good job of that.
And I think one of the complaints about EU was kind of that starting mission phase where you're just kind of leapfrogging and overwatching, and we thought it'd be a great way to you have a little more free reign when you start the mission, so you won't get spotted right away and not have to worry about that. So kind of solve that gameplay problem as well as fitting in very well thematically, which that's always great when that happens. Some of the early testing you did where you really used concealment more because individuals could be concealed, and if one guy got spotted, not everyone would be revealed. It really just made the missions kind of drag on. I mean, it obviously sounds cool. That's why we tried it. We thought it sounded cool, but it really XCOM is really about fighting aliens, and that's where the game really shines when you have to take risks and try to fight off these strong baddies. There are parts in the game right now where the ranger class can go kind of down a stealth route, and he won't get revealed, and everyone gets revealed, and he can kind of march right up to objectives and do them, and then the fight kind of kicks off. So there is some of that in the game now, but
you can sort of opt into it individually. Yeah. When it was the full squad, and yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, this is a turn-based game with potentially 6 units in a squad. Every move you made in concealment felt very empty when you were doing it on turn 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's something, I don't know, as an option design might think about, but it's not something
core.
It
kind of made the fights feel, since they became more optional, it made them feel bad when you had to fight, which is really not what we wanted with XCOM. So I'm happy we went with the kind of phases of gameplay we have now, because it ended up working a lot better, I think.